Here's a photograph of the aircraft that I am attempting to duplicate in miniature. Good old 421 here. And you see these big old rocket pods on the ends of the wings, and you can see that they have a very fancy paint job. And it looks like to me that it's yellow and red. I don't know that for sure, but I think it is. And this is exactly the kind of paint job that people go out and buy airbrushes to try to duplicate. Now, I wouldn't be on this channel if it weren't for the fact that I do stuff like this without an airbrush. So here is the rocket pod from the Revell 1/72 scale F89 kit with the markings from that aeroplane that was parked up in Elmendorf Air Force Base, Alaska. I'm going to show how I did this in this video, start to finish. So stay tuned. The first step in making this kind of a elaborate marking with really bright colors is you're going to need some of this stuff called trim film. It's just a big giant decal. Now this one happens to be yellow, but it's an orangey yellow, and I don't like that, so I'm going to paint over it with this Tamiya lemon yellow. I use all of the paints I'm going to use are going to be glossy Tamiya paints. And you can see how thin it is there, or how thick, depending upon one's point of view. I'm going to add a little bit of Windex to it to thin it. Windex works well as a thinner for Tamiya paint. And it's a little easier to work with than the other possible Tamiya thinner, which is alcohol. So I'm really stirring this. Got to give it a really good stir. And then in order to put a coat of paint on here properly, you're going to need a certain kind of a brush. Now, I wish I could tell you where to go buy one of these for $50 or something, but I can't. In order to get really good brushes, the truth is you got to scrounge. Now, this baby showed up in my scrounging sites at Michael's craft store. It was in a bag with a bunch of other brushes, and it is just wonderful. But it was so cheap, so difficult to find, I can't recommend it. I don't know what to recommend it to you. Because when I bought this brush, I had to modify it by crimping the ferrule. Yeah. So if you've ever had your ferrule crimped, you know that it can be painful. And I crimped my ferrule using vice grips, the only way to fly. And it kept the hairs from falling out of the brush. Believe it or not, this brush was so bad that it shedded hairs. It shedded hairs like crazy. Anyway, I did modify it to make it work the way I wanted to. Now, other than that, I can't tell you anything. That's just the way it went down. Here is the finished product. That took me a few seconds. You cannot overwork this paint, and I'm not saying that metaphorically. I mean, do not overwork this paint. Put it on fast and then stop. You cannot apply this and then keep brushing over it. It doesn't work that way. Okay. Moving on. Here is our sheet of trim film that I covered with a nice bright yellow. And then I cut out the portion that I painted with the yellow after it dried. And here it is. Now I put a little piece of very low-tack masking tape on there that I'd cut into the shape of a triangle. This is a template. Now I'm not going to be able to keep what I'm doing here in frame all the time because I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not. I wish I were. I guess I want to become one, but I'm not one. Now what I'm trying to do with this template is simply make yellow triangles. Yeah, I'm going to have to fire my assistant director on this shoot. Oh, you can't get good help. Now this yellow, eventually we're going to end up with a yellow triangle that's going to be kind of the swoosh on the side of the rocket pod. Now that black trim film, that's printed black. It's just like the yellow one was printed yellow. I'm putting the triangle-shaped decal that I made on top of the black for one reason only. I want a black outline. That's it. Now, I don't blame you for feeling like this is a waste of decal material. Because I have an autistic brain myself, so I get it, you know. There's all that unused material. But if you can stand it, you know, you can do it this way. You just have to cut it out, boom, boom. It's, you know, it's the right shape and everything. If you were really fussy and super, you know, special, you might cut out little strips of decal material and or trim film, black trim film. Cut little strips and do that way. But I don't recommend that. The best way to go, I think, is to use scissors and to use the trim film the way I'm doing it here. And we're going to make another little yellow triangle. See how that works? You can mass produce them this way. Cut it out with my special Tamiya scissors. I'm not being super careful about this. I'm not being super worried about it. I just eyeball it and I just cut things and it works out. Give yourself permission to do that. I mean, for me it works. Now I've got to take that piece of tape off of there. If you think you're having trouble seeing with my out of focus, out of frame video skills, you have no idea. I have trouble seeing too. This whole experience is kind of realistic. It's like a virtual reality experience. It's like actually having to do this with my vision as it slowly deteriorates over time. We're going to take this second little triangle and we're going to put that on the black trim film. And then we'll cut those little guys out and apply them to the sides of the rocket pods. And this will provide us with the beginning of the marking that we're trying to accomplish. These triangles, they go on the outside, the outboard side of the rocket pods. Now this still may appear mysterious to you because you know the whole thing has this swooshy shape and it wraps around and so on. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But right now, we're going to apply the yellow. This yellow triangle gets applied to that black trim film just as soon as it loosens up from the backing. Heck, I think this is interesting. You know, I think my opinion counts. All right, I'm trying to do a little housekeeping there. Not so easy. Okay. Now I've applied, as you can see in the back there, I've applied those triangles, cut them out and applied them. Now I'm moving on to the next portion of this. Now, the application of the triangle, cutting it out and applying it, is a step that you might think, well, it's a missing step. I'm going to write to Consumer Affairs. Feel free. Feel free. All right, here we are. What I'm in a hurry to get to is how the geometry of this thing works. You see the pointy part and this sort of red part go together to make the pattern. Okay? It's too large right now, but we're going to fix that by cutting it in half. So I just rip the decal off there, get my fancy scissors, and cut it in half. This is actually red decal with embarrassingly large number of streaks on top of a black decal. So there are actually 4 decals here being applied simultaneously. I'm not sure how, you can see them slipping around there and so on. I'm not sure how I'm able to do this, except maybe it's like my Rain Man's superpowers, autistic superpowers. I don't have the blackjack playing superpower. I never have a superpower that would make me money. Yeah. So here we go with the completely non-money making application of these decals. And you can see the tank already has that pointy yellow part applied to it. And now when I apply this larger red part, it lines up with the pointy yellow part to make this shape. Now, I didn't think it was necessary to actually show putting the yellow point on there. I'm not even sure I had this on video. But if you don't make that connection, God bless you. The pointy yellow part goes on there, and then this part goes on. The application of this whole decal is, I'm just going to come out and say it. This is right at the limit of my abilities, even with my superpowers. This is right at the limit of what I can do. So all the haters who really hate using decals to do any kind of markings, there are people who really do not want to use decals for anything. They just want to spray everything with an airbrush. They like to do stencils. So for the people that really hate decals, I'll just say that this is not something that you want to try your first time at bat. This is not easy. And in fact, there were moments when I really thought it was just going to fail. But it didn't. It came together. I'm going to put another coat of red paint there where it's really streaky. The beauty part about the decal method is that I don't have to cut it in right up to the black line with my brush. I can get within shouting distance of it, say within a couple of millimeters. And if my hand happens to shake a little bit or I sneeze or something, it's no big deal. I'm eliminating the need for all of that super precision with the brush. But the big issue, which is the streakiness, will go away with another coat. Now, look at the geometry of this and think about painting this by hand. I don't believe that painting it by hand is doable. Not easily, not at all. Because the geometry of this particular problem is pretty severe. You've got to figure out how to set up some kind of reference line. I'm sure there are people who can do this. I'm sure there are people who can draw it in 3 dimensions with a pencil. I'm not one of those people. Now, I learned to do this on YouTube, and it's a pretty cool trick. I've got my cotton swab. That's what we call them in the USA, cotton swabs. Despite what you may have heard, they're cotton swabs. And I'm flattening that decal out. You've got to give the decal a chance to adhere to the underlayment. That's my vocabulary word for the day, underlayment. You've got to be able to get that decal to lay down, mechanically force it down. That's where that rolling cotton swab comes into play. And that's how we do that. We're just going to take another look at these guys. Check out those rocket pods. If you have enjoyed this or gotten anything out of it, or you just want to put a comment in there and say that I left out part of it or something, go right on ahead. Like and subscribe. Click on one of these links that's popping up here. And stay tuned. I will continue to work on this scorpion. Bye.